The fourth reason for adopting a vegan diet is that eating animal products supports cruelty to animals. 20 years ago, scientists were still telling us that other animals don't feel pain in the same way that human beings do. Now, no reputable scientist believes that. Everybody now understands that cattle, pigs, chicken, fish, all farmed animals feel not only pain, but joy, sorrow, fear, distress, and an array of other emotions, just as we do. They share these and other capacities with us. As just a few examples among many, scientists at the University of Guelph have learned that pigs and chickens will choose to turn on the heat in a cold barn if they're given the chance, and they'll turn it off again when they're too warm. And University of Bristol researchers have observed that chickens will complete a difficult maze to reach a nest instead of laying their eggs on the barn floor. Perhaps you read the New York Times article about the ability of sheep to recognize the faces of 50 or more sheep or humans from photographs, even if they haven't seen those sheep or humans for 2 years. In Pennsylvania, a farm welfare researcher has shown that sows like to play video games, and they play the video games better than some primates. And a researcher in Saskatchewan is studying the complex social lives of cattle, finding that they interact in ways very similar to the ways we interact. These scientists join sanctuary owners and many small farmers in recognizing that all animals are individuals, with feelings just like our own. Science and understanding may have progressed, but factory farming hasn't. As Senator Robert Byrd told the U.S. Senate, our inhumane treatment of livestock is becoming widespread and more barbaric. He went on to detail the suffering of pigs in tiny stalls, hens packed into cages, calves in crates, and the inhumane and inhuman slaughter of all of these animals. Senator Byrd stated, "These creatures feel, they know pain, they suffer pain, just as we humans suffer pain." I hope that everybody listening will watch PETA's short Meet Your Meat video, which you can watch or order online at goveg.com. Once you have a copy, please make more copies for everyone you know who you think might profit from watching it, and encourage them to do likewise. The video shows what you're supporting if you consume meat, dairy products, or eggs. Every practice on the video is standard agricultural practice. The indisputable fact of the matter is that the production of all animal foods in modern agricultural settings, no matter if they're meat, dairy, or eggs, they always involve the killing of animals when they're no longer profitable, and this is always a gruesome and violent process. Furthermore, factory farms are abusing animals. They're treating animals in ways that would be illegal were dogs or cats treated so abusively. And although we might not know them as well, cattle, chickens, pigs, and other farmed animals, they all have personalities, they all have interests, capacities for joy and sorrow, and so on. But on today's farms, everything natural to them is denied. Their entire lives, from birth to death, are characterized by unmitigated misery. Novelist Alice Walker has a phrase for eating animal products. She calls it eating misery. In the rush for profits, abnormal breeding practices are used so that animals will grow far more quickly than they would naturally, and their organs and their limbs just can't keep up. So, for example, chickens' upper bodies grow 7 times as quickly as they did just 25 years ago. But their lungs, their hearts, and their limbs can't grow that fast. These factory-farmed animals, they live for fewer than 2 months before they're at full slaughter weight, and yet they still suffer from very high rates of lung collapse, heart failure, and crippling leg deformities. Chickens and turkeys are naturally inquisitive. They would normally spend their lives actively dust bathing and sunbathing, digging in the underbrush, building nests, playing with their chicks, and so on. Walk into any factory shed today with tens of thousands of chickens or turkeys, and you'll find that after just a month, the animals have become so debilitated they can barely move. Similar conditions exist for all animals raised for food. Cattle and pigs have their testicles ripped out with no painkillers. Cattle have their horns cut from their heads and have third-degree burns, euphemistically called branding, inflicted on them, often 3 or 4 times during their short lives. Pigs have their ears, tails, and teeth mutilated. The beaks of laying hens are seared off with a hot blade. The animals are pumped full of hormones or antibiotics, both to make them grow more quickly and to keep them alive through these horrible conditions that would kill them from stress and disease if they weren't so drugged up. After very short lives, all of these animals are shipped to slaughter, often through severe weather extremes and always without food or water. Conditions are so bad that many of these animals arrive at slaughterhouses crippled or dead. According to the USDA, more than 100,000 cattle per year, most of them dairy cows, arrive at slaughterhouses unable to walk off the backs of the transport trucks. According to the National Pork Board, more than 400,000 pigs each year arrive for slaughter unable to walk off the backs of the trucks, and more than 100,000 arrive dead from the harsh traveling conditions. As for those who do make it, imagine how bad the conditions must be for it to cripple and kill that many animals. Gail Eisnitz wrote an excellent book entitled Slaughterhouse, and you can read reviews and extensive excerpts on the web by using the Slaughterhouse link at goveg.com. Ms. Eisnitz interviewed USDA slaughterhouse veterinarians, slaughterhouse workers, and truck drivers, as well as others who are intimately familiar with conditions in U.S. slaughterhouses. These experts testified that animals routinely arrive for slaughter, frozen to the sides of the transport trucks, frozen to the truck bottoms in their own feces and urine, crippled from the journey, and so on. Near dead, they're simply hooked to chains and dragged from the backs of the trucks. The animals who live through the transport process, invariably they suffer an awful death. Workers and veterinarians from inside the plants testify that animals are routinely conscious through the entire slaughter process. Their throats are slit, their limbs are hacked off, and their skin is torn from their bodies while they're still conscious. Pigs routinely go into the scalding hot water for hair removal while they're still conscious. Chickens are routinely scalded alive in the feather removal tank. Really, this is an inevitable result of the fact that pig slaughter lines in the United States move at a rate of 1,100 animals per hour. Cow slaughter lines move at 400 animals per hour. In the European Union, the maximum rate is 300 for pigs and 75 for cows. So U.S. lines are moving 3 to 6 times as quickly as European lines. Obviously, animals are still going to be conscious as their throats are slit and their limbs are hacked off. In PETA's Meet Your Meat video, we show slaughter at its best. Cows and pigs slaughtered in a small slaughterhouse in Massachusetts by a trained worker who's in no hurry at all. And yet you can clearly see that the animals are still conscious as their throats are slit. With most lines moving at the rates they do, and the workers making so little money and having so little training, one can assume that gratuitous abuse is the norm rather than the exception. Animal abuse in the dairy industry isn't as obvious, so it may surprise